Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us again. So today we are reading Psalm 33, 4 through 12. So this is actually, I used to teach yoga and I taught a priest, and he gave me this, it's called the Psalter. So it's the Psalms only, and it's laid out in poetry form, which is what they are. So it's really beautiful, but it's a very specific translation. So you can read it in whatever translation you want if you don't have the actual devotional in front of you. But this won't match whatever you're reading. For the word of the Lord is true. What God says, God does. This lover of truth and justice fills the earth with love. God speaks, the heavens are made. God breathes, the stars shine. God bottles the waters of the sea and stores them in the deep. All earth be astounded. Stand in awe of God. God speaks, the world is. God commands, all things appear. God blocks the plans of nations, disrupts all they contrive. But God's plans and designs last from age to age. Blessed the land whose God is the Lord, the heirs whom God has chosen. So I love that translation so much. So I had to use it for this. There's so much beauty. I mean, you could say that about almost every psalm, except for some of them where David's kind of going off, like, kill my enemies.
Yeah.
He's like, calm down, David. But it's so, like, God speaks, the heavens are made. God breathes, stars shine. Like, I love that whole section of just, it's kind of harkening back to, it's harkening back to Genesis, right?
Oh, yeah.
The way that the world was created through God's word. But then it ends and it says, God speaks, the world is, God commands, all things appear. And then you go kind of into this next section that is kind of funny. Like, I feel like it's this moment where it's like acknowledging God's strength, acknowledging like
his
sovereignty, but also like his like power, like where it's like, you can just do that. Like, I speak and it just appears. Like, I can't imagine. And then he goes on to say, God blocks the plans of nations, disrupts all they contrive. But God's plans and designs, actually, this is really interesting, and I can't speak to this in terms of having studied it, but it says God's plan and designs last from age to age. And I had to type this one in because it wasn't from a thing. And I double checked that one, but it's literally God's plan and designs last from age to age.
Yeah.
Which makes you feel like God has one plan.
Yeah.
But many designs.
Well, he's gonna get his plan done.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that often, I mean, I can't help but think of Jonah right now.
Right.
And it's like, are you gonna choose to join in?
Right.
To God's plan.
Right.
And what he has for you.
And I think also trust.
Oh, trust.
Because like Jonah's big thing is like, he's like, no, they're not good.
Yeah.
I'm not helping them.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that especially right now, we all have a them.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone has a them. Like, as if some groups of people are beyond God's grace or beyond God's love. And nothing, and the Bible is very clear about this, is beyond God's reach. Nothing is.
Right.
You know?
Oh, yeah. And what better thing than to see a restoration of who you would call your enemy?
Right.
Having them be reconciled to God, but then also having your heart follow God's heart and be rejoicing in that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think it when we were talking earlier this week and you were talking about God's, like, us functioning out of our weakness and God's strength, I think that a lot of that comes from one thing I didn't get to say when we were talking about that, but what I was thinking about was God's glory can be seen better in our weakness, because God is you're able to say, I really didn't do this.
Yeah.
Like, God did this.
Yes.
And I know God did this because I didn't have it in me.
Right.
You know, and I think when we join in God's plan, like, so you were talking about Jonah, but then it makes me think of Moses too.
I was just going to say Moses.
So it's like when you think about Moses, and it's like Moses literally, he is one of my favorite, because he's like, I love how much he argues with God.
Yeah.
Because I'm a big arguer. And I've literally had prayers where God has just been like, I'm not talking to you about this anymore. Like, we're done. Like, we're done with this conversation, which I have said to my own children.
Yeah.
Like, this conversation's over. Because I'll just keep wanting to come back to the same thing because I didn't like my answer. And he's like, it's done. You need to move on.
Right.
And Moses just, and it's not just one time. Moses constantly is like, oh, God, I don't know about that. I don't know. And it was totally his own weakness.
Yeah.
But then that's where you really get
that-
to know, like, that was God's glory, that was God's strength that came in, because this was not this amazing, again, he wasn't a Saul. You're not talking about this big warrior who came in and to rescue everybody. This is like a dude who's like, I can't even speak in front of people.
But then what God said was, I will be with you.
Right.
And it's just that reassurance of like, who is with you?
Right.
Go refer back to Psalm 33, start at 4.
Right.
It's this God.
Right.
Who does all of this.
Right.
He is with you.
Well, because in 5, the lover of truth and justice fills the earth with love.
Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't want that guy on your side?
Well, right. Or he breathes and the stars shine. Like everything, like draw on him.
Right.
And make your work be the work that goes with his plan.
Right.
And he will be on your side. And
right. Well, because really you're on God's side at that point.
At that point.
Right.
Otherwise it's like,
you're trying to go
if
against.
you try to go
think
against
about
God, he blocks the plans of nations.
He will
disrupts
get you
all that they control.
swallowed
So
up by a fish.
well, right. Yeah. You will fall into decreation. The flood waters coming.
Yeah.
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 So follow him.
Right. Well, and I think it's, again, like trusting. Because when it talks about God's plan, I think of God's big plan. Like, right, like we sinned in the garden. God needed something to bring us back to him. Like, we couldn't continue living in this world of disconnect where we only have one or, it was more than one or two people. But, you have one or two people within your community that are speaking and having that direct relationship to God, where we're having to bring in sacrifices. Like, it's just not a way to function continually, right? So he brought in Jesus to then also expand his family to everybody. So he had his plan, and his plan was going to come to fruition no matter what. But when you look at that, you also think of these smaller plans. And again, this is where I am constantly like, I make the joke that I feel like when I want to head in a certain direction, that God isn't just like, oh no, honey, you're going to go this way, because I just won't do it. I'm like, no, I thought of this really great plan. You don't understand. And he's like, I actually do, because I'm God. Thanks. And I feel like when I start to go this way and I'm like, I'm going to do this, he will. And I don't mean in sin. I just mean like literally just thinking like, oh no, this is like a good way to do something.
Right.
God will like block. I mean, full on, like, I feel like it's like, I'm going to throw a bomb here and there's going to break apart a bridge and you're not going to be able to go that way anymore. So you have to turn this way. And it doesn't feel good a lot of times. Right. But when I get to the other side on this over here, I'm like, wow, this is so much better than the thing I had planned out. Just shocking to everybody that God's plan is somehow better than mine.
Yeah.
But it's that what I've really been working on is, after seeing that over and over and over again, trying to stop before it gets to that point.
Yeah.
And really trusting him and saying like, this doesn't feel comfortable to me.
Mm-hmm.
Or this doesn't look the way I was expecting it to, or this isn't what I want.
Yeah.
Or wanted.
Yeah.
But I'm going to like trust you and kind of start to walk this way on my own. And it does feel better, 1. And 2, there's like this lack of this, like, I get into these struggles of God. I'm struggling. And then I get to the other side and like the whole thing was better. And I could have just gotten here with so much more ease if I just hadn't done it.
When Lucy sees Aslan,
right,
no one wants to follow her.
Oh,
sorry.
I love Lucy.
Go read Narnia. You'll get the reference.
Yeah. Lucy sees Aslan and no one else can see him. Yeah. And she insists that they follow her, and then they don't want to follow her, and they basically are acting like she's crazy.
Yeah.
And
they have a rough go because of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then finally they see him and they all... Mm-hmm. So be more like Lucy and less like me.
Anyway.
Yeah.
I think...
Yeah. So that was today. So there's some questions here about your plans and God's plans and learning to trust God with those plans. So read those. Again, if you don't have this, you can go to thirsttobe.com/Advent and get the PDF. Okay, thanks. We'll see you later. Bye. Peace out.